Okay. Test. Could we invite all our guests to please come forward and join us? Please come into the room and find a chair. You can sit anywhere you like. Welcome, everyone. Please come in and find a place. So please come and find a place.
So please enjoy the room. Make the seats free around you. If there are seats empty, please notice and use. We are more than 200, so we have to use all the room.
There are a few seats up here still, so come up. Fantastic.
We are waiting for a few minutes. Is a person that has to arrive?
Right, we have one more dignitary to arrive and then we'll begin. He's in the building, we know that. So talk to your neighbor, introduce yourself.
An applause to the GABV, to the GABV, please. And an applause to Tom. Tom is thank you every one of us, and we have to thank also Tom for.
And I always have Dario at my back, so for Dario as well. Well, Dario, we didn't go long enough there. I think we need to.
So, yes, is something that Tom will say later, but this is the one important foundation, a cultural foundation in Italy, but is Tom in charge of exploring this space. Give me only 1 minute, please.
Okay. Hold your breath. That's true. So maybe that's something to say. Thank you. For those of you who are here from the public, maybe just raise your hands if you're not from the GABV. So just to see who's a little bit in the room with us. This looks like mostly GABV here, yes? Okay. For those who have not been with us on the journey, Global Alliance for Banking on Values started 16 years ago with a small group of banks. At that time, about 8 people, and Peter Blom as our our chair, and each year we've grown to now where we have nearly 70 banks and financial institutions, also coming from community mutuals and banks that are cooperatives. And we chose early on to be a broad group of banks because the core, the essence of this group is about banking on values. So how values really drive our missions, and through our values we also, deliver to the real economy. So these are some of the things that we care about, in our meeting, which started a couple of days ago, now continues on with this. And I think I'm going to show the video first. I think that's going to be a good thing to do. So could we roll the video? So you can have a view of what we've been doing the last couple of days. So Dario, we can officially begin, I think.
We can.
Yes, that's fantastic. So the first question is, where are we? And we are in a foundation. It's the Gian Giacomo Feltrinelli, I'm going to get it right sooner or later, Feltrinelli Foundation. It's a premier cultural institution. It was established by a person by that name, and it's there. It's there to reflect some of the big questions facing society, and what this foundation has done, and the people who have been in this building is genuinely remarkable. They do work by crossing sources that are historical. They do research and public outreach. They're cultivating new ideas and new perspectives. That's why we're here. And they are really open to bringing in culture and entertainment that opens relationships. It's also an institution that asks questions and does research. And this was really in the spirit of the founder. So there's a number of things that have been published through this institution that focus on globalization, sustainability, politics, human rights, issues of labor within the city, and it offers itself as an open platform for the community to make inclusion between academics, local actors, and the community real. So this is, in a way, an institution that believes in what we believe in, the real economy with real people working together to solve real challenges in the world. So with that introduction, I think we can begin by meeting the director.
For sure. Before giving the stage to Massimiliano Tarantino, who has arrived, I want only to remind you that if you are interested during the dinner, the dinner to which you are invited, the staff of Massimiliano and the foundation is available to show you the archives of the foundation that are very precious. I don't know if Tom wants to say something, because he visited them in November, and we saw very, very important things. So we have free possibilities to visit, 20 people per visit, and you can ask for the visit in front of the stairs.
Right. So there'll be a sign up because only 20 people at a time can go into the archive. So we're only having three visits.
We can do much more than this.
Yes.
So if you are really interested, it's a good opportunity.
Right. It's just a lot of books and things like this.
What
right,
is
yes.
in the
well,
archives?
I don't want to excite them because they'll all want to go. You see, this is my... So, no, but really what it is almost a complete library of the history of socialism and of the different movements in the world, and especially here in Italy, but especially in France and in the Soviet Union during that time. And I think there are something like 80,000 artifacts that came in just one tranche. So and it's all underground.
Exactly. So
yeah. So please.
So Massimiliano, please. If there are people standing, there are seats in the middle. Please come and sit. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to everybody in Fondazione Feltrinelli. It's a really, really great pleasure for us to host you, the annual meeting of the Global Alliance for Banking on Values for the first time in Italy. The word at the crossroads. The title of this initiative effectively defines the historical moment we found ourselves in, the urgency of embarking a new path together as a community. The crossroads is a key element of history and human evolution. Although it may involve a decision of enormous significance, the choice revives and gives concreteness to the concept of freedom. Facing the crossroads, we can only gather strength and choose. Since the birth of the Gian Giacomo Feltrinelli Foundation in 1949, the archive has been committed to the research and preservation of documents, first editions, newspapers, iconographic material. In other words, what we define as traces of civil and intellectual progress. The turning points of social, political, and economic history. Over the years, we have enriched our archive with the reflections and wisdom of intellectuals, with the foresight of thinkers and visionaries, with the courageous deeds of those who have fought for social change, the innovators, the revolutionaries. We are not talking about men and women in gray, or subversive hidden in the shadow ready to cause disorder. Not even Hollywood characters waiting to stab us in the back. On the contrary, I refer to those people full of will, who in the chaos of contingency have had the clarity to reflect on their own context, not to surrender to the pitfalls of reality, but to take measures to start a new path. It is Albert Camus, with the myth of Sisyphus, who gives us the image of the defeated and brave revolutionary human being. Devo fare io? Regia?
Here, let me see.
Let me see.
Have to turn it on. Is it on? Yes, it's on.
May I ask you to...
Make sure.
Yes.
Need to change this. Yeah.
I don't make anything. Li stanno mettendo su. Va bene, no problem. We go on and we will see the picture at the end of the speech. It is Albert Camus, with the myth of Sisyphus, who gives us the image of the defeated and brave revolutionary human being. According to Greek mythology, Sisyphus, whom you can see in the Gustave Doré depiction behind me, next coming, is a king condemned for eternity to push a boulder to the top of the mountain, only for it to inevitably roll back down. It is a representation of the horror and fear one feels at the first hint of failure, at the risk of giving up on the path full of hopes. But in the same way, as Camus argued in the famous essay, Sisyphus represents a man who does not surrender to fatalism at the crossroads and chooses to live with clarity, to remain true to himself and to be aware of his freedom, nevertheless of his revolt. It is not an act of faith. It is the conviction that, however momentarily defeated, one can start again by reclaiming the dignity to persist. Because, as the philosopher writes, in the descent, at the very moment when he fails, Sisyphus is superior to his fate. He is stronger than his rock. For centuries, intellectuals like Camus have contributed to the emancipation and social evolution, providing society with insights, questions, provocations, and those doses of reflection and doubt necessary for the formulation of thought, generating virtuous circles of awareness and an expansion of public consciousness. Visionaries, thinkers, present-day demiurgs have become revolutionaries by building the future, or rather, by giving others the tools to build it. But in recent years, something has changed. Rapid and impetuous transformation have altered our existence, and in response, the world has assumed a complexity and sophistication unprecedented. The figure of the intellectual has become increasingly rare, a species of the verge of extinction, as if confined to another historic epoch. Yet, simultaneously, we have witnessed a technical and, above all, technological revolution that has quickened the exchange and propagation of information, enhanced freedom of expression, and created the best condition to the contamination of thought. In a context of multi-crisis and transitions, as a think tank for social research and a public space for citizenship as we are, the Fondazione Giacomo Feltrinelli believes that cultural operators should take on the responsibility of fulfilling the rules of intellectuals and innovators. We feel the need to empower the community about the responsibilities of the present, the global shifts we are facing, and the crossroads the planet puts us in front of, a need that unites the participants of this assembly, you. The goal is to prevent culture to being trapped in the academic debates, filling the gaps and the most urgent question of the community, smoothing the difficulties that current complexity entails through educational tools. Education and awareness raising are fundamental processes if we want each of us to become an agent of change. Because today, our society is not only confronted with the need of enlightening individualities, but more fundamentally, with the need of awareness for understanding. It's not about finding immediate solutions, giving hope without concreteness. On the contrary, it is precisely the faith in change that allows us to maintain our innovative momentum. The idea that with patience and perseverance, our action over time can influence the common vision, the foundations of our communities. What we see, now this is Sisyphus, we can see the next one. Yes, this one. What you can see are some documents showing the upheaval and misery of the 1929 crisis from the American magazine Labor's Challenge, kept in our archive. When in 1928, John Maynard Keynes reads his reflection on economic possibilities for our grandchildren to his students at Winchester College, reflecting on what he imagines to be economic script of 2000, he still cannot imagine that the economy will collapse within 1 year, 1929. However, the solution, even before concrete proposals, lies in whether those who look at the crisis try to respond first and foremost in terms of will. For Keynes, any prospect of recovery will be ephemeral if it doesn't take on that care and concern born before the collapse. The issue is not therefore whether the proposed solutions work immediately. The possibility of imagining reality differently requires shedding the garments of pessimism and resignation, giving strength to future hypotheses. Imagining for business and capitalism is a future very different from what everyone expects, is not for Keynes a school exercise. It is a way to take responsibility for future decisions in light of how much of oneself one is willing to put on the table. In conclusion, this is why we believe that the crossroads should and must transform into an intersection in a renewed union between cultural and economic operators. We can support policies in triggering a new paradigm, finding a sustainable balance between economic development, social innovation, and digital transformation. A social pact born from the will to put the demand for good politics and the link between community and individuals back at the center. Mending a waving solidarity relationship, giving new life to cooperation, ending a hyper-individualistic and exploitative logic that transform our society in a more and more poor one. If the only true mistake is to remain still at the crossroad, it is in the courage of choices that the hope for a fairer, more just, welcoming, and flourishing tomorrow is revived. Changing the world is not impossible, but to do so, we need the determination of those who loudly assert their freedom, recognize themselves as active participants in change, imagine alternatives, and respond to the crisis of the present. Those, like ethical banks, who are concerned with acting concretely for change, engaging in dialogue between the economic and financial dimension with a model of sustainable human and social development. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimiliano Tarantino. I think that Feltrinelli Foundation is in good hands. I'm working on this. One of the things that I really appreciate about what you immediately do for us is that you take us to the wisdom of our forebears, those who were there before us, and even though our technology isn't quite there, we could actually envision Sisyphus pushing that rock up and not giving up, not giving in to those moments. And at the same time, you're visionary. You took us to a place and challenged us to take action as we go forward in the future. So thank you for that.
Now, we ask to Emmanuel Conte, Councillor of the City of Milan, to say some words of welcoming to all this international delegation. Milan is one of the most open and innovative cities in Italy, for sure, but also in Europe. Emmanuel has graduated in economics and has a past as a banker.
There is a link. There is a link. There's always a link. Good afternoon to everyone. And first of all, let me thank Global Alliance for Banking on Values and the group of Banca Etica for inviting me, and Fondazione Feltrinelli for hosting this important session today. And also, I'd like to extend the warmest of greetings on behalf of the Mayor of Milan and the entire administration that I represent today. I'm honored to be here with you at this event dedicated to the values in finance and technology to transform society. I have often the opportunity to welcome, on behalf of the administration, events like this, but today I'm particularly honored to be here with you to introduce a topic of great current interest that is never sufficiently debated and discussed. The world is facing existential threats like a new era of war and climate change, and the international community unfortunately seems to be missing a shared vision to tackle those challenges. Just to mention one, this Monday, it has been 2 years since the war began in Ukraine. And for the first time after World War, a war of conquest has brought bloodshed to Europe. It's really important to remember that. Authoritarianisms and nationalisms are on the rise, and the protection of fundamental rights like liberty, democracy, and peace is no longer on top of the global agenda. This discouraging drift of the global affair is a matter of great concern for everyone and is posing a dire threat to our city as well. For this reason, it's important today, it is necessary for Milan to be a point of reference of a rigorous and demanding reflection of what is happening over the last year, where politics, economy, finance, and society have been experiencing ever deepening and frequently linked crises, the polycrisis, as defined by the leading global leading economist in Davos back in January 2023. For this reason, I'm really happy to welcome this important event, which brings together the best experience of the financial community, but not only, to reflect, understand, and also relaunch a role of a new financial system that knows how to look beyond this current situation and that knows how to plan an even richer future for us and for our children. And today, right in our city, where business and banks work side by side with solidarity and inclusion and rights, this conference addresses another way of doing finance, investing, saving. The global network of ethical banks can show us what it has been doing over the war in Europe, in Italy, and even in Milan. The banking system, so I came from there, often considered a part of the problem, today is part of the solution, has to be part of the solution, especially in carrying out two important functions. Reallocate financial resources towards a new development model whose horizons are broadly outlined by the next generation EU, based on new technologies and environmental and social sustainability. And secondly, facilitate corporates and families to overcome difficulties brought about by COVID before and by the economic crisis today, promoting solutions that allow a return to an orderly solution. Today, inequalities, climate change, and wars are part of our current state of affairs. They are now systemic issues that democracies must address. The global network of ethical banks propose a different model of development capable of offering financial tools for people's lives and dignity. And we, as administration, we strongly support the position of ethical banks that vehemently oppose the war economy in favor of a peace economy. The latest report I had the opportunity to go through over the last days on the role of ethical banks in Europe show us that ethical banks prove to be resilient enough to offer financial service as much as traditional banks, being profitable at the same time. One figure in particular caught my attention. During the pandemic, ethical banks maintain a greater solidity of assets compared to the most significant banks. 8.2% compared to 6.2% was 2021. That's incredible. And in this framework, Milano, that has an history of development, inclusion, and solidarity, and Gian Giacomo Feltrinelli is an expression of that, wants to play a role. This administration has taken up the challenge launched by the polycrisis, and adopted 4 strategic documents: Territory Plan, Air and Climate Plan, Mobility Plan, and Circular Economy. These political and administrative tools embrace all the ESG factors and set up challenging goals, so environmental, social, and governance, 3 fundamental sectors, all of these. They range from public transport electrification to construction of schools and gyms, from large-scale urban reforestation projects to the energy requalification of buildings, from the focus on widespread healthcare in territory to the creation of conditions for real gender equality and inclusion. Just a few examples among the main objectives set: 45% reduction in CO2 emission by 2030 and net zero by 2050. 75%, at the moment we are at 65, of waste sorting by 2028. 100 kilometers or more cycle path around the city, and 70 kilometers more of subways, so with the extension of all our infrastructures. And just to say, the acquisition of 350 electric buses to fight noise and pollution. To conclude, Milan's municipality is hoping that the movement for a more ethical bank will keep growing in Europe and around the world. A more sustainable finance system is paramount to making a difference in everyone's life and spreading well-being in our communities. So I'm confident that today's discussion and working together will give us a new helpful insight to build a different future, or as I just read it, let's create a future of value together in this brochure. And thank you again for choosing Milan as the venue for an initiative that precisely aligns with the Milan history of economic growth and inclusion. So I wish you all a great success for today's conference and enjoy your staying in this beautiful city.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Conte. You have no idea how much these are words that are singing in our ears. We have many city leaders in this room who are working hand in hand with their cities, whether it's in Kampala or New York or Minneapolis, St. Paul, who all are wanting to work together with visionary cities. And I have a feeling we could really help Milano to reach its dreams in whatever ways possible. And you're already giving us a good start by showing us your vision. Thank you.
Now is the moment of having on the stage Marco Carlizzi. And the reason why, Marco, please, you can. Marco Carlizzi is the chair, the president of the asset management company of Banca Etica Group, Etica SGR. So you have been welcomed by Banca Etica, I hope in a good way. It's up to you to decide this. And we do this together, all the societies of the group, all the companies, Banca Etica, Etica SGR, but also our foundation that is here represented, and Cresud, the microfinance sector company. So Marco Carlizzi, since 2023, is the president of Etica SGR. He is a proud member of Banca Etica since 2001, like me. Elected in the board of Banca Etica from 2013 to 2022. He's a lawyer, partner of an international legal group, and he teaches in several universities, in particular Federico II di Napoli. Thank you.
Thank you, Dario. I'm the last one before the main speakers, so I will be very, very fast. So thank you for coming. Everybody already told you first, before me. I would just, tell you that this city is famous for the fashion, of course, for the finance, okay? But this today will be famous for the ethical finance, thanks to you. And I will say that, now more than ever, we need the peace, and this is our job, our main testimony that we can do today. So it's an honor for me to open this conference in my new role of chairman of Etica SGR, part of Banca Etica Group. We join some other shareholder of Ethical join us today, so I'm very appreciate this join us. And Etica SGR is an asset management company of Banca Etica Group that since its very first early step in 2000 has been committed to introducing ethical finance in the financial market. This engagement is outstanding proof that there is indeed a growing interest in a different kind of finance, one that doesn't just seek the make of profit, but also care about the social and environmental impact of its action, as you know. With 7 billion assets under management and around 500,000 clients, we are a small company for Italy, but not so small. Today, during these 5 minutes that Dario gave to me, I have no time to introduce complex arguments. And then I would like to take the opportunity of having in front of me representative of ethical banks from all over the world to share with you, as sharing is one of our core values, 3 ideas and insight. So first of all, I would like to address the important issue of engagement and stewardship. Together with Luca and Roberto, our general manager and deputy general manager, we want to go beyond the engagement of the company we invested in. We want to engage our clients. We want to get engaged by our clients. We call this practice widely distributing shareholdering. We always ask our clients what sustainability issue they would like us to propose, thereby encouraging a reflection about the importance of their financial decision and the impact they can have on the world. It's a circular process. They engage us to pursue the goal they entrust to us, but they also engage themselves to pursue such goals. So far, we have started with those clients that are registered in the restricted area on our website, but the ultimate goal is to reach everyone. The second important point to consider is that we are not only discussing about sustainable finance, but we always speak about ethical finance. So this is the second idea, second insight we would like to share with you. The approach of ethical finance is holistic and integrated. It's only through the consideration of the 3 ESG variables, environment, social, and governance, together that real change is possible. Governance and strategies must drive the sustainability. This new way of doing business put people and planet at the center, recognizing that every business decision has an impact that goes beyond financial statement. That is why we are pushing to move the conversation in the newspaper, in all the interview we do, from sustainable finance to ethical finance. It's the only way to bring together human rights, the exploitation of the global south, and the core of power, the governance. And then the last ideas, the last not least, as we say, among today's challenges, the development of artificial intelligence stand out. Everyone is talking about it. And even this conference, as you know, was opening this Monday in Padua by discussing artificial intelligence. In Etica, as SGR in the group, we are called to use artificial intelligence to make a better world. We cannot, for example, accept the use of artificial intelligence for recognize the race and act on the basis of the race identified. I refer to the problem to biometric recognition, which is also being considered by the EU Parliament, but also the insurance market that allowed different prices for different races. Similarly, we must put the use of artificial intelligence to further marginalize the disadvantages, the elderly, and those who are not digital native. So we call digital divide. We need technology to solve problems, and we must therefore remain the service of the people, like the finance. So the technology must solve the problem. As Etica SGR, we have been wondering for months how to engage with AI production company how to make the most out and stimulus that we receive from our shareholders and the members of Banca Etica. It's not easy, but it is something we can work together. In conclusion, now, more than ever, we need to speak out and advocate for peace, including through finance. Each of us is called to work with the ultimate goal of peace in mind, because no one is saved alone. And therefore, let me introduce to you the main speakers of today. It's a great honor to give the floor to Susi Snyder, Program Coordinator of ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, and honor with Nobel Prize for Peace in 2017. We were together in New York City just a few months ago. So Tom, you can introduce better than me, Susi.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you very, very much. And also to put that exclamation point on ethical finance as something different that is holistic in the way that we think about finance. Thank you, Marco, very much. Yes, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. And one of the things that when I had a conversation with Susi recently to prepare for this, I realized is that she's heart and soul in her commitment to the elimination of nuclear weapons, but she also has widened her aperture as she does that. And one of the things we felt that was so important to have her here today was that she could bring to us years of experience, tremendous understanding of what it really takes to have a full presence in society, to change in the ways that we just heard our speakers talk about change. So it's a question of how can we as banks become a big voice against violence, against anything that relates to fighting or to war. And Susi is there for us as a trailblazer and as a guide as we go forward. She's written many books. She's spent 20 years in her own work in activism. She's been focusing on a world free from nuclear weapons, one of her featured books. She's been in media. She's won many, many prizes. The one I really liked was the Foreign Policy Interrupted Prize. That was from Bard College. And Susi, we want to welcome you this evening. Thank you for coming.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Whew, this is great. This is a packed room. I love to speak to a packed room. I love to speak at a session that starts with the idea of Sisyphus. I'm here to talk about peace and building peace and eliminating nuclear weapons. And let me tell you, over the last couple of decades, lots of people have called that a Sisyphean task. Lots. But brothers, sisters, siblings, we're here together to do something about this, to look at the ways and means in which we, not me, not you, but we, can build this more peaceful, just, and resilient society with benefits for everyone. It was a huge honor to be invited here by Banca Etica, Etica SGR, and the Global Alliance. And I want to take a minute to appreciate each and every one of you for coming here as well. Because you're not here just to listen to each other, you're here to communicate, to talk, to build this world together. The world that we want, and to grow a community of financial leaders with the power and vision to do better for everyone. But let's take a look at the world for a second. We've heard of this already, so I won't double up too much. It's bleak, right? There's a massive war raging in Europe. There's a war raging in the Middle East. Thousands across the globe are risking their lives and their limbs to escape brutality, poverty, and worse. And not to mention, there's rising sea levels, massive wildfires, and other climate change-induced crises. And I work on nuclear weapons. And about a year ago, some scientists predicted that a child born today has a 50% chance of dying in a nuclear war. It's bleak. The risk of total mass destruction on a biblical scale is higher than it's ever been. But there is another side to this story. And it doesn't get the headlines, but it follows our heartlines, it follows our lifelines, it follows us. Every person fleeing from disaster has within them a spark of hope. I know my family, I come from a family of, I'm the second generation refugee, right? And everyone in my family, they fled disaster, and they did it with this spark of hope. Hope that they would make it through. Hope that things would be better for those that came after. Hope that the sacrifices they're making would be worthwhile. And that hope is not blind hope. That hope is not naive. It's not naive to think that the world can be better. Because, in fact, the evidence is showing that the world is better than it used to be. And although it feels very bleak, the last couple of years have felt very bleak, it's actually better than it's ever been before for more people. There's more equity. There's more access to education. There's more access to healthcare. We've managed to reduce global maternal mortality in the last 20 years by 35%. But people said it couldn't be done, and it happened. We've made change. There are opportunities that are created by individuals with vision, passion, and determination. And I'm looking at you. And you are individuals who can imagine a world where the word war is met with disdain, where creators and builders of weapons of mass destruction are shunned, and where humanitarians are celebrated. This is not imaginary. It's not a world of, pipe dreams. This is a world we are actively building. It's the world that surrounds UN buildings. It's the world that inspires international relations students, that encourages citizens to join their diplomatic corps. Building this world, building this vision, is what inspired you and your institutions to join this alliance, to share the value of doing no harm. It's a world that is actively being built by the dedication of countless individuals who organize, activate, engage, and demand better. And it recognizes that each and every one of us has a right and a responsibility to act against injustice, to demand different from systems of power that profit from instability. And I'll tell you, we are winning. And again, it may not feel like it, but if you look at the way that the defense lobby, in particular, the European defense lobby, has worked so hard to get everybody on message, to get editorials published here, there, everywhere, they are scared of our power. They are on the defensive. And it's not just because of the industry that brings them profit. They are on the defensive because they know the products that they are creating are ones that are not sustainable. I believe that even the most stubborn politicians, the wealthiest weapons CEOs, and the most vocal warmongers can and do change. I know they do. I know it because I've seen us change them. And this is a vision that we strive for, a world that prioritizes sustainability, rejects the catastrophic implications of weapons of mass destruction or nuclear deterrence, and honors those who dedicate their lives to fostering peace and well-being. Peacemakers are heroes. War profiteers are villains. And that's the way it breaks down in this world. And I'm part of building it, and I assume and I am excited that you are part of building this as well. Now, there's lots of different ways to make this world a reality. So I'm going to put some ideas out there because I said, oh, this is a group, I was told this is a group of people. I can put some, big ideas into the room. Some people will react to it well. Some people might think I'm crazy. That's fine. I've been doing this for a long time. You can call me how you want. But I think there's two key ways that we can do more. We can build on this idea. We can create this peaceful world. Education and engagement. First, education. I want to ask you, how many of you tell your clients the things that you get up to? How many of you are going to leave this meeting and send a note out, a newsletter, an update on your website, a message out to your app to tell your clients, hey, I was just in Italy. There was this cool peace declaration. We were met at this foundation where the history of socialism archives were. And we talked about the idea of pushing back against Sisyphean tasks. How many of you are going to send that message out? Anybody? Yeah, there's a couple. All right. Good. Because your clients already trust you. They trust you with their money. Their hard-earned, their hours. And they trust you to give them good information. They trust that you're doing something right for the world and for them. So when you talk about the things that you're doing like this, it builds that trust, it educates them, and we need more of that. We need you to tell your clients about what peace building means at home, and to ask your clients what peace building means to them. I work on issues of nuclear weapons, and one of the things I do is look at the spending around nuclear weapons. And it's more than 80 billion spent each year on nuclear weapons. So let me ask you this. If you asked your clients, what would you do with $80 billion? You'd say, well, that's an opportunity because 80 billion wasted. Sorry, for me, 80 billion is like I know you all work in finance, so 80 billion is a real number for you. But for me, it's like, okay, it's $157,000 a minute. That I can deal with, right? But what would you do with that? How would you fix the problems in your community? With 1 minute of nuclear weapons spending $157,000, what would you do? Why not ask? Start that conversation, engage with your own clients. We've had the privilege of working with a number of financial institutions over the last few years. And Marco mentioned that we were together in New York at the UN. We did some events at the UN, we did some events at Wall Street, and following on from that, a number of the institutions that we worked with, they shared photos. They shared a summary. They shared a message of hope and possibility to their clients. They said, hey, we were there. We were there when for the first time ever, the United Nations, the body of the United Nations that works on peace and security, these diplomats focused on ending nuclear weapons said, oh, the financial community has a role to play here and we want to partner with them. They were there and they told their clients about it. It was like a brief paragraph in a quarterly sustainability update, a photo and a tweet. It's not like a big deal. It's not like a huge task. But it helps get the word out. It's education. Why were you there? Oh, because it's part of our core values. This is something I think it's really important. What else did you do there? I heard back from some institutions that did get feedback on those newsletter, and people asked them why. I was like, well, because we can, because this is an opportunity, because you see us engaging on climate change. You see us going to the Convention on Biodiversity, but this is also important. This is something we need for that to work. So they came. How did we get this reference? How did we get this this mention? You see it in your bags. We managed to get over 100 institutions to sign on to a statement that was presented by Marco there. That was 110 investors representing over $1 trillion assets under management that said, hey, nuclear weapons are wrong. We want to work with you to do something about this. The statement is a little bit more complicated than that. I'm summarizing for brevity's sake, but we've seen this happen. We've seen this power of cooperation. We've seen it in climate change. We've seen it in biodiversity. And now we're seeing it in nuclear weapons, and we will see it in other peace-building efforts. how can we tell our other people about this? How can we tell people that there are finally, after years of negotiation, there are finally more regulations in the world on firearms than there are on bananas? It took a long time to get there, I'm not gonna lie. But those regulations include the Arms Trade Treaty, which means technically, countries that signed up are not allowed to sell weapons to other countries that are committing human rights abuses. What a great tool, what a great thing. It's super complex and buried under, diplomatic speak, but what a cool thing. And what a great thing that we can tell people about, that we can use our power of communication, our power to educate, to inform others. And I think it's really important to talk about these pieces of international law, even if you don't name exactly what the piece is, because that is what builds sustainable peace. And like every law, not everybody follows every law all the time. I jaywalked twice on my way here. But it helps create a norm. It sets a standard. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? And that's something that we have to do time and time again. We have to remind one another of those standards. We are the bearers, the creators, the strength of those standards, because they come from our vision, they come from our values. But then there's also engagement, right? So there's engaging locally, and I'd love to ask you if, I know at least a few of the institutions that are part of the Alliance have really strong connections in their local communities. I don't know all of your institutions. I admit it, there's a lot of you. It's incredible. But you have connections with local communities where you are strong. And you're connecting with them in ways like sharing office space for events. By saying, oh, yeah, you've got something going on? Well, we'll be happy to show up and send a speaker. Or engaging with firms that are developing new technologies, that are looking at how and where their products are going to be changing the world that we live in. I was thinking about this a lot in the context of new technology firms and technology that is being developed to make weapons supposedly more deadly, or more targeted, or more precise. And again, my expertise is nuclear weapons, so when you talk about precision nuclear weapons, that's just a big dumb joke, because nuclear weapons are designed to kill 100,000 people like that. There is no precision when it comes to nuclear weapons. They're big, dumb, dirty bombs. But other technologies, as you're engaging and looking at the ways and means that technology companies are developing as they come to you for financing, put some guardrails out there. You have that power, you have so much power. It's very cool. We have a lot that we can do, and we have to work with each other to set up those guardrails, not just in this room, but through the globe, looking at ways and means to do this, looking at ways that we make sure we protect human rights, because a lot of our institutions and a lot of our activities kind of also take on a human rights lens, and I think that is really important. I also want to know, and I'm thinking about how we engage with entities from whom we get services, from whom we buy products, things like MSCI. I think that we need to start telling MSCI that their off-the-shelf products cannot include controversial weapon producers. I don't know, some people want to say all weapons producers, some people want to limit to controversial weapons. Pick your battle, pick your choice. But MSCI, you shouldn't have a standard index that has weapons producers in it. That should not be the norm, because it is not normal. And I ask, and I think, again, coming back to engagement at home, how and where we're building long-term, sustainable efforts for peace. Because I've been doing this for 25 years, give or take, and I love it. And I do this, because of the kindness of others. I do this because I have worked my ass off to make the resources available. But it would be really helpful for others who could be peace builders if you had in your institutions maybe some donor-advised funds that could slide a little cash to peace organizations, to institutions that do work on these issues, to support community peace-building initiatives. You know, think globally, but also act locally. I gotta ask, some of the organizations here I know make available on their website, for example, crowdfunding possibilities for local organizations to raise money for their issues, for their activities. It's a great example of, again, giving back to the local community. And it's a way to continue to build trust with clients. They look to you, they trust you with their money. I bet they'd trust you to help guide them with their charitable giving as well. And I have to ask, what about your employees? I always ask these questions. Like I said, I ask some, tough questions sometimes. But are your employees, do you give them time off to volunteer for stuff? Because it's cool, it's a great thing to do. Do you have matched funds if they want to donate to certain charities? Do you help them by matching? Do you have chats and bring in speakers, to talk about the main issues pressing in the community or in the world? It's nice, and it helps build this sense of community and ownership, collective ownership over these global challenges that it will take global response to solve. And we have to turn these ideas and the vision that we have into concrete plans, into reality. And we have a plan to end nuclear weapons, right? Like, we had first, it was stigmatize the weapons, make everybody understand that these weapons are designed to destroy cities. There are bombs in Europe that are designed to bomb Europe. There is no help possible. We worked with the Red Cross and we helped governments see that there is no hope. There's no soup and blankets if a nuclear bomb goes off in your neighborhood. We stigmatized the weapons. Then we made them illegal. And we got an international treaty that made them illegal. And that was not easy, but we did it, right? They told us we were absolutely insane. The US ambassador held a press conference saying we're boycotting these talks and gave us massive press and coverage in the New York Times because of it. But we did it, we have a plan. Now our plan is to abolish these weapons, to get more countries on board this treaty to make sure it's workable, to increase that stigma, to talk about the money around nuclear weapons. We have a week of action in June, and we're going to talk about the money around nuclear weapons. And to work with everyone who wants to work with us to do this. So I would love it if everyone left here and told folks you were here, told folks you talked to this Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Let me tell you, the mayor of Oslo is amazing. But, that you talk to somebody about this idea of a world free of nuclear weapons, that it's possible. And because it is. It's 9 men who control nuclear weapons. 9 men, we have to change their minds. That's it. It's nothing. I can change 9 guys' minds before, the end of the day. I can bet you. But we also have to build peace and build a longer-term sustainable peace. And that means building up the foundations of our society, building up the laws and the norms. And you do that in your work. You do that in who you talk to, what you talk about. I do that. And we do it together. And we have to say that things that are wrong are wrong. And you know what sucks? We have to say it a lot. Over and over and over again. We have to repeat our vision. We have to repeat our values. It's like if you're a parent telling your kid not to touch the hot thing on the stove. You have to do it more than once. You have to do it over and over and over again. It's part of the job. Just as part of our job is to say the wrong things are wrong and that there is an alternative. Because every time we do that, we reinforce the stigma. We reinforce the fact that certain things have no legitimacy in the world. And that works. It works in the nuclear weapons field. The delegitimization of the weapons made Russia walk back threats to use them. 3 times we did that after the war in Ukraine started. 3 times we got threats recanted. because of the stigma, because of our collective efforts. As public stigma grows around the evils in the world, more and more opportunities and alternatives emerge. Because instead of investing in the arms industry, there's investing in city infrastructure to make your city much nicer. A city with good public transit and lots of bike lanes is way cooler to live in than a city based on car culture. It just is. And you know, that's what all the top 100 cities in the world's lists always talk about. We know that our efforts around delegitimization work, including our cooperation in the financial community. And we know that it worked on cluster bombs. We got Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world, to stop making cluster bombs because they wanted to be open to investment again. Just a year and a half ago, a UK institution, a UK company, Serco, said they weren't going to bid on a nuclear weapons contract ever again because of the pressure from the ESG community. They wanted to be investable. We know this works. It takes time. Everything takes time. Everything good takes time. But it works. There is evidence that cooperation drives positive change. And it may seem impossible. And especially sometimes, you know, I wake up and I turn on the news and it's the worst thing to do, the first thing you wake up in the morning, and it's like war, 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 famine, 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 and it's awful. It sells newspapers or sells advertising time on TV news because that's what I watch. You know, we have to look closer for the good stories and tell those. That's part of our job. When we take action for peace and tell others about it, we're building the world that we want to see. When we set up donor-advised funds and we invite our clients to invest in them, we're doing that. We're saying this is part of building the world that we want to see. When we work together with local organizations to help share their efforts, publicize them, maybe do skills training for their boards of directors, because sometimes they don't have the greatest skills. We help build the world that we want to see. We can do this together. Sometimes they have really good skills. We have so many opportunities, so many possibilities if we carry the hope and the vision forward. I am so confident that in about a generation or less, people will look back at this time, at this crossroads, and they will judge who chose to keep going blindly down one path and who chose to create a new way, to turn off the road. People choose paths that lead to the world they want. And as we share our vision of the world we want, we build that path, we make it stronger. I'm confident that people will look back at us and say, they were crazy, but they did it anyway. And that's something I think we can all take and we can all carry forward with us. It may seem impossible, but we can do it anyway. Just look at what we've done in building this collection of people in this room today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susi. Maybe just stand here for a minute. I just think it's good that we honor our keynote speaker today. You know, sometimes people come and they share a new perspective for us, and I think that's good, new perspective. And sometimes people come and give us a new conception of what's possible. And I think that is really what you did for us this evening, is that you really said, you know, let's build a future that we want. Let's change the norms. Let's talk about money and how we use money to do that. Let's find ways to awaken through education. I heard a quote recently that I think is very apropos for this. One of the high commissioners of Europe said, the only way to kill a bad idea, propose a new one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
So keeping moving along, one of the things that the GABV became interested in was some research that was started by the Fondazione Etica here. And the question was, if we're a movement that is really trying to investigate how its members are engaging in peace and finance and the weapons industry, we have to know something about that. So thanks to Banca Etica, we've conducted some research. I say we. It's Barbara Setti who has led the charge on that work. And she has some remarkable results to share with us. Who is Barbara Setti? She's been working since 2018 for Fondazione Etica, the cultural foundation of Banca Etica Group. And she's an expert in cultural heritage and the management of cultural enterprises, cooperatives, and the third sector. She deals with management control, charitable donations, fund management, everything that relates to how we create space for this kind of research. But she's led this research, so I want her to share with us your results. Barbara Setti, welcome.
Let me start saying that it's very hard talking after Susi. She is so inspiring, so I'm sorry for everything now. And I also want to thank Mauro Meggiolaro and Alessandro Longo. Alessandro Longo is here with us because they are the two persons that did the research, and I am just a good presenter of this work. I need the... Uno, due, tre. Okay, sorry. Okay. Today we are here to explore a crucial topic, the financial sector's role in arms production and trade. This joint research written by Fondazione Etica and the Global Alliance for Banking on Values underscored their shared belief in finance as a force for societal good. Our goal is to examine how values-based banks address arms trade issues and to compare their policies with leading ethical banking institutions worldwide, represented by GABV. Let's start with a crucial point, the ethical issues related to investing in weapons. It's widely known that investing in weapons goes against moral principles and isn't good business practice. We'll see how values-based banking, which focuses on ethic and sustainable investments, highlights the importance of thinking about the wider impacts of financial decisions. After that, we look closely at the main players in the defense industry, especially the big investors who are driving its growth. Finally, we look at the data on how GABV banks decide not to lend money or invest in weapons. In 2023, global spending on defense rose by 9%, reaching a staggering $2.2 trillion. The UN Agenda for Disarmament highlights the vital link between economic and social progress and the absence of conflict. It shows how the widespread presence of weapons, even in non-conflict regions, negatively affects all aspects of human lives, hindering the achievement of the 17 SDGs adopted by UN member states in 2015. But just imagine if the resources used for weapons were instead invested in, what about, Susi? Healthcare. An analysis by the International Peace Bureau converts the cost associated with specific weapons into healthcare goods and services. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, global government spending on armed forces totals $2.3 trillion, equivalent to 2.2% of the world's GDP. Redirecting just half of these funds could provide basic health care for everyone on the planet and significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In this scenario, banks and the financial sector are heavily involved. Between 2020 and 2022, they provided significant support to the defense industry, amounting to at least $1 trillion. However, this estimate might be lower than the actual amount because there is no official database tracking all investments, loans and services from global banking and financial institutions in the arms sector. Despite the lack of definitive data and transparency, it's evident that the global financial sector substantially contributes to the production and trade of weapons, which in turn fuels military conflicts. Deals in the defense sector often involve corruption. According to a SIPRI report, more than 40% of global corruption is linked to the military industry. The secretive nature of arms deals, usually involving a small group with shared interests, makes it difficult for the public to monitor significant expenditures. Close ties between governments and contractors, along with claims of national security, make oversight challenging. Also, insufficient laws and accountability led to less transparency in democracies. But let's explore an alternative approach, values-based banking. The 71 banks affiliated with the GABV have minimal exposure, if any, to the production of trade of weapons. The majority of them have clear policies that exclude weapons from loans and investments. Furthermore, values-based banks avoid any lending or banking activities associated with weapons. Investment companies owned by values-based banks typically exclude all types of weapons and weapon systems from their portfolios, regardless of turnover thresholds. Today, many investment funds claim to be ethical or sustainable and often choose to exclude the armament sector using exclusionary criteria for ethical reasons. However, in values-based finance, the arms industry is deemed incompatible with sustainable finance. This stark contrast highlights the fundamental principles guiding values-based banking and underscores the broader implication of ethical investment decisions. There are different ways to keep weapons out of finance and banking, each having at least two effects. Firstly, when weapons are publicly excluded, it raises awareness about the devastating impact of investing in them, leading to civilian casualties and worsening conflicts. Secondly, excluding weapons restricts arms manufacturers' access to money, making it harder for them to make and sell weapons, reducing their role in conflicts and making their long-term future uncertain. Recently, there has been controversy over excluding funds from defense companies, but the conflict in Ukraine has changed views, especially in wealthier countries. Now there is a push to include defense in ESG frameworks. In November 2023, EU defense ministers agreed to make it easier for defense companies to get money, so financial institutions are changing their policies. This shows that even sustainable investors are always sure about excluding weapons from their investments. Despite the lack of definitive data, the stock prices of arms manufacturers have seen a significant increase. The outbreak of war in Ukraine and Palestine led to a surge in the value of stocks of arms-producing companies. An analysis by the Financial Times revealed that the order backlog for new armaments reached record levels in 2022 and the first half of 2023. Increased government spending has stimulated investor interest in the sector. The global benchmark of MSCI for sector securities surged by 25% in 2023, while the European Aerospace and Defense Sector stock index rose by over 50% during the same period. On a positive note, an increasing number of funds and banks are excluding weapons from investments, particularly focusing on nuclear weapons. The latest report by ICAN and PAX highlights significant progress in divestment from the weapon industry, with 55 global financial institutions seizing financial involvement with nuclear weapons manufacturers. Mainstream investors like Storebrand and Svenska Handelsbanken are also divesting, showing a broader trend. Additionally, 54 financial institutions are making progress, but have room for improvement. This divestment raises awareness and makes it harder for the defense sector to obtain funds. Value-based finance has played a crucial role in the shift, advocating for the exclusion of weapons since the earliest ethical investment funds in the 20s of the last century. Between December 2023 and February 2024, the Global Alliance for Banking on Values surveyed its 71 members. The results revealed that none of these banks financed the production of trade of weapons. Additionally, 73% of them have clear exclusion policies regarding investments in the arms industry. Most importantly, these policies not only exclude controversial weapons, but also avoid any involvement in the production or trade of weapons altogether. The majority of GABV members, over 80% in Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Africa, have exclusion policies regarding weapons. In contrast, North America has a lower rate, around 35%, possibly due to anti-ESG laws. Some GABV banks without explicit policies still exclude weapons due to ethical standards or high-risk considerations. Others, such as Building Society in the UK and community banks in the USA, focus on community projects, SMEs, or microfinance, inherently avoiding the defense sector. In these cases, exclusion of the arms sector is implicit. In conclusion, finance and the banking sector have traditionally treated weapons as a typical industrial products. However, the accuracy of data on the lending international investor in weapons remains questionable due to limited public information. In contrast, values-based finance recognizes that weapons inherently lead to destruction, death, and corruption, and therefore they are either implicitly or explicitly excluded from investment considerations. Nevertheless, mainstream finance is gradually beginning to impose restrictions, divesting from certain types of weapons and establishing more or less stringent policies. This shift owes much to the influence on value-based finance, which has long advocated for a distinct approach to weapons. The encouraging progress in mainstream finance policies and divestments has even prompted the European defense lobby to acknowledge challenges in securing credit from banks. Jen Pai, Secretary General of Aerospace and Defense Industry Association of Europe, noted in 2022 that European armaments companies have faced difficulties in obtaining funding from lenders and investors, partly due to financial institutions proactively aligning with new European Union sustainable investment regulations. It is imperative to sustain momentum on this path. Thank you.
Again, I'll keep you here, Barbara. I just want to say thank you so much. Please stay here for a minute. Don't run off. I want you to take in all your gratitude. You know, without an evidence-based approach, we wouldn't have a base on which we can build. And you've put all that time and energy and work into that. And you know, you don't have to worry about following Susi because bankers love numbers. So this was perfect. So thank you very much. Thank you. And I have a very easy job next because I'm introducing Martin Rohner, our executive director. Most of you know, but I'll just say for our guests here, he was the chief executive at Alternative Bank Switzerland, and he's served in many different roles in fair trade. And I think we should give him a warm applause for also being one of those people who really made this whole project and today possible. So, Martin, thank you.
So, well, first of all, thanks a lot, Barbara Setti, for showing us this nexus between the financial sector and the weapons and arms industry so clearly and comprehensively. And also, Susi Snyder, for your message of hope. I really appreciate that, and I think it really gave us hope. Now, after getting the big picture from Susi and from Barbara, I think it's time to hear from some practitioners that we have here. And I'm really excited to introduce three distinguished colleagues from the Global Alliance for Banking and Values, who are representatives, I think, of our very diverse and global membership. I would like to start at the far end with Mirella Picmesi. Mirella is Chief Executive Officer of Finca DRC, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo's largest microfinance bank. Mirella has 25 years of experience in banking and in the telecommunications industry. She started her banking career in Albania, where she originates, and she has worked for Finca for over 10 years in Haiti and also in the Democratic Republic of Congo in executive management positions. So you can just imagine how difficult her job has been in the past. Mirella is going to speak to us how conflict and civil strife have affected Finca's operations in the DRC and how she and her bank are managing this. Then sitting next to me is Priscilla Sims-Brown. Priscilla is President and Chief Executive Officer of Amalgamated Bank in New York. Priscilla has over 30 years of financial services experience, including stations at the Commonwealth Bank in Australia, AXA Financial, Sun Life, the Lincoln Financial Group in the United States. And like Mirella, I think, Priscilla, I think I can say you are a real global citizen, having lived not just in the United States, but also in Australia, in Germany, in Ethiopia, and I think in other places too. Priscilla and Amalgamated Bank are recognized for their leading role in fighting gun violence in the United States, and Priscilla has personally been very engaged in this matter. And my third guest and panelist is Aldo Bonatti. Aldo is the Stewardship and ESG Networks Manager at Etica Funds, which is, as we know, the daughter company of Banca Etica Group and the leading provider of sustainable funds in Italy. And before joining Etica Funds, Aldo held positions at Citibank International, BNP Paribas Asset Management, and the ECB Group in Italy. He also is adjunct professor for responsible finance at the Catholic University in Milano and for innovation and entrepreneurship at the State University in Milano. And I think I can also add, Aldo, you're an active member in various working groups of the PRI, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. But now, without any further ado, I would like to dive into the conversation and hear from all of you. And I'll start with you, Mirella. You live in a country that has gone through a really tragic period of war, of genocide through the 1990s. And finally, after implementing a set of peace agreements with Rwanda and Uganda in the years 2002 and 2003, the country has reached some stage of stability. It's encouraging to see investors coming slowly to the Democratic Republic of Congo. But more recently, in the run-up to the presidential elections last year, I think we're seeing civil strife and violence flare up again. How is this all affecting Finca and its everyday work, and how are you and your team dealing with this and making sure also that your staff and your clients are actually safe?
Thank you. I speak, okay. So hi everyone, thank you for hearing me and having me today. You are right, the peace agreements that were signed, but actually the war never ended in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In reality, it's not only during the presidential election, but it has been all this time. It is 20 years that in the east of Congo, actually we do have fights between the M23, which is presumably supported by the Rwandan government, and the Congolese. It is really very hard. I mean, every time we have elections, there is protest. This time, actually, it wasn't, even though staff and members, I mean, I was asked to stay out of the country for security reasons. And that's the normal policy. In December, we had so many fights in the East, where we do have a branch, that every 2 days we had the security committee in order to see what are we going to do, what's going to do the cash, how can we help our customer, how can we serve our customer, what is going to happen to the family of our staff. We have evacuated them right now in February. Only, the staff originating from Goma is there, and we have a process how to help them. The same thing is with our client. They become at risk because they enter into a bank, and when they get out, their money can be stolen. There have been recent attacks in the houses of the people, and the protests in Goma recently have gone sky high, but not only in Goma. Because of the attack that is in Seke, is a city just 25 kilometers away of Goma, all the population is angry. Because actually you do not know, many of you do not know that actually the war is escalating, that the M23 has entered near a city of 2 million people, that just on the 7th of February there are 144,000 people displaced. And in total, in all the DRC, there are 7 million displaced and 400,000 refugees. So in this kind of situation, what you need to do is you need to think how you can help your customer, how you can help your staff. And we definitely thought about it years ago, because it's not of today. So we developed, digitalized the process. Our customer actually have the access on their phone. They can use mobile money, but it's very necessary to train them continuously. Just a week ago, we had all the branch managers, while in the East, the situation was very terrible. And it was this situation migrated to Kinshasa. There were attacks against UN, against every embassy, against every white person, being considered that we are not talking enough about the war which is in the east of Congo. We are not protecting enough the population there, and we are not helping. And actually, after a week and a half of protest, attacks, thanks God, just only one loss of life. Finally, we have a declaration, we have a support, and we have UN engaging with the agencies to raise money in order to help the people which are displaced in the east of the Congo.
Thank you, Mirella. And I think what it also, first of all, thank you to you and your team. I'm always impressed by your personal courage, but also the courage and the fact that your team is out there helping those customers. Thank you for that. And I think what you're speaking to is also there are many conflicts in this world, apart from the one happening right now in Europe or in Palestine, that we unfortunately forget, and I think this testifies to that. Priscilla, I want to turn to you, because you're living in a highly developed country, and yet you are also faced with violence of a different kind. And you've been leading a very courageous campaign against gun violence in the United States by calling out on the credit card companies and the International Standards Organization for not developing, let alone implementing, a merchant code for gun purchases. Can you maybe explain to this audience what this means? Why do merchant codes matter, and why did Amalgamated Bank take action?
Sure, I'm happy to do so. Some of you know the story, so I'll try to get to the update since we last got together. Merchant category codes are a 4-digit code. They're global, and they identify every retailer. So the place you bought your shirt, or you got your haircut, or you bought your shoes, they all have distinct codes that identify the class, the category of retailer that is, and it's identified by the most dominant product they sell. And these codes are important. You know they're important because you get a little ding on your phone whenever your credit card has been used in the wrong store or in the wrong country. And it's this compilation of information, this algorithm, that helps us to do that. And this is an audience, I don't need to tell that to. What's odd is that there's an industry which in the US, there are 6,000 gun stores. and they sell over 10 billion. They have over 10 billion in sales of gun products every year and ammunition, and yet they didn't have a merchant category code. The law says if you have over 10 million of a particular type of product, you should have it, and they have 10 times that. No merchant category code. Now, this is an important thing. You know, the merchant category codes help us to identify human trafficking. It's used very effectively that way, money laundering, and other kinds of things. When we reverse engineer the major mass crimes that have occurred in the US, as well as the crime that occurs in cities every day, many of those, as you reverse engineer them, an advocacy group found 40 mass crimes, which a merchant category code may have enabled the bank to file a suspicious activity report with a law enforcement agency and then get ahead of the crime before it was caused. The example I like to use, because most people know about it, is in Las Vegas. You may have heard about 59 people dying because a man went up into a hotel room and shot into an event where people were enjoying music. 59 people died. That man followed a predictable pattern. He spent a multiple of his income. His income was under $50,000. He bought $90,000 worth of guns. We, as an industry, financed it because he put it on 4 new credit cards that he took out for the purpose, and he went to multiple gun stores so as not to be detected, and he went across state lines so as not to raise the attention of any particular law enforcement agency in any one place. And that's a predictable pattern. There's also a predictable pattern associated with people buying guns in states that are very liberal, have very liberal gun laws, carting them up to states that have tough gun laws, and selling them in the black market for more money. We see this happen. We could see this happen. We could see the purchases happening in Georgia. We could see the money coming into the account in New York if we had a merchant category code for gun stores. So this bank sought to do something about it. It took 3 years of just pushing and pushing and pushing to get a merchant category code through the International Standards Organization based in Geneva. Finally, in September of 22, we got it. Seemed like, well, that's what we thought. Seemed like a really good thing until the NRA went to work. There are now 17 states that have laws prohibiting merchant category codes only for gun stores in those states, in direct contradiction to the federal law. So there are high courts in these states which have asked the Supreme Court to address this. More recently, the state of California has issued a law, passed a bill, thanks to Governor Newsom's hard work, which is consistent with the federal law and now requires credit card companies to activate the codes in that state. That's really good news, because if they're doing it for California, they'll make it available in other states where there are no laws prohibiting it. They had been pausing until this happened, so that's really good news. This is a journey, like it's a marathon. We haven't won it yet completely. We'll know we've won when we've been able to stop this, when suspicious activity reports are filed, and as a result, there's fewer of these crimes.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. Very impressive, and I think it speaks to both the hope but also the picture of Sisyphus having to keep pushing that ball up the mountain. Aldo, I'm turning to you since we're talking about advocacy, and you've been advocating for the divestment from nuclear weapon investments in the financial industry for a very long time, including in the collaboration with ICAN. And I think it would be very interesting to hear how you engage with companies to draw their attention to the issue on the one hand side and see how, what the progress is. But also what I'd like to know from you, do you see a shift in the financial industry?
Okay, thank you, Martin. And firstly, it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to share views with you, with Priscilla, with Mirella. As you know, we don't actually invest in companies producing any weapons. However, in 2021, we launched a campaign to advocate for divestment among the financial community at large. To this end, together with Susi and ICAN, we developed a position statement on the TPNW, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. In 2023, this statement, our statement, had been signed by over 110 institutions, managing assets in excess of 1 trillion euros. And this is just the start. And there are, of course, many reasons, countless reasons, why investors should avoid nuclear weapons companies. I would say the most compelling reasons are two. The first is saliency, the moral imperative. The catastrophic humanitarian and environmental consequences of deploying nuclear weapons cannot be controlled in time or in space. The second reason is financial materiality. The threat of actually using nuclear weapons creates a systemic portfolio risk for investors. As nuclear weapons can destroy much of human civilization, their use necessarily inflicts a damage to the economy and harms markets across every geography, every sector, every asset class. And while saliency is a strong motivation for ethical investors like us, any financial operator taking a long-term view cannot ignore the rationale based on materiality. Then, you mentioned if something is shifting, if there are reasons for me to be optimistic. Well, I work with, mostly on these topics, I work with Susi, so how couldn't I be optimistic or positive? Then, jokes apart, there are promising grounds for optimism. I mentioned the joint statement by Etica and ICAN, and I have to say the number of financial institutions that signed the statement almost trebled in the last 2 years. And the growing interest in the statement by many pension funds in different countries makes us confident that we are close to a tipping point. Another sign, another positive development comes from a report recently published by Pax and ICAN and just mentioned by Barbara. The data in the report shows that despite an overall increase in the amount invested in nuclear weapons, the number of institutions investing continues to drop. So less institutions, bigger size of investments. Even in the face of government engagement to invest more in arms producers, many financial institutions have developed policies and have stuck to their policy of excluding these companies. Why? This policy is based on concerns about getting caught up in financing weapons of mass destruction. And such concerns are further amplified by the pressure from ethical investors like all of us here today. So we must keep up doing the good job.
Thank you, Aldo. I think it's wonderful to hear that. And you just mentioned it, calling out those institutions. If there's much fewer institutions doing this with larger amounts, it becomes even easier to call them out. So I think we're winning, definitely. I'd like to go back to you, Mirella, and let's have a look at the solutions. What can you as a bank do in a difficult context like DRC to prevent violence, to prevent this kind of conflict?
Well, it has different dimensions. I mean, first thing is we don't finance them. So we are one of the institutions that definitely have a policy. It's written in our product guidance for every single person that we are not allowed to finance any production, any trade nothing for the arms. But it's not only that. I mean, you have to know your customer. You need to know who is doing that. It's not easy. Maybe it is very easy in Europe, but it's not easy in Africa to know who does what, where the information is not there. So we train in continuous our own staff, not only how to protect themselves, but actually how to know the customer. The rules of anti-money laundering, we don't train only our staff, but as a member of the association, which we are the president also, we trained everyone else. So that's a characteristic. But avoiding financing, then you are in a country, in a place where it is already there, the war. So what can you do? So what we do is actually we try to repair. How can you repair? By giving an opportunity. How you give an opportunity? First you inform. So we go where the people displaced are, where the poor of the poor are, and we train them. Financial inclusion, digital, equality. We have created products only for women. We have created dedicated products for the poor people. But we also raise guarantees for them because you may understand they lost everything. Their home, their wealth is somewhere else, and they just moved 3 weeks ago and they came to Goma. What can they do? So actually, it is very important to show them the way. It's very important to show there is light. It's very important to show the road how they can improve their life. So yeah, this is how we help.
Thank you. I think that developmental role addressing those root causes, and maybe when we talk about the root causes, Priscilla, in your view, where do you see the root causes for the kind of violence that you've been fighting with your bank, and how do you think financial institutions can address the systemic drivers behind such violence and conflict?
Yeah, violence is a symptom of deep problems in a society, right? And I think that's why all of us talk about the interconnectedness, the intersections of all of the things that we do. When there's calamity, whether it's climate related or otherwise in your environment, when you are oppressed from a financial perspective, when you can't imagine that you can ever get out of a bad situation, either for yourself or your children or their children, people resort to violence, and it's violence in homes, and it's violence in the streets, and they result to crime. I mean, these are all natural outgrowths. I mean, this is why we in the North American context all talk about the wealth gap in such a significant way. It's important that this median wealth has declined so badly in the US. And, you know, I'm looking at Brian, and I saw Darren earlier, Steve over there. Everyone's doing something to address this problem in some way. The social determinants of it, you know, looking at the climate impact and those most vulnerable. All of these things are really critically connected. You can't disconnect them. This is why we talk about all areas of E, S, and G, whatever you want to name it during a backlash era. That is why we have to be so comprehensive in our thinking about this. It's also why my mother would say, you think about the least of these. You know, this is who is most, who loses trust in governments and institutions the most, because governments and institutions have failed them. I'm not making excuses for violence in no way, but I'm just recognizing that these mental health conditions and all that we've gone through, the trauma is what is behind much of it. The violence itself is a symptom of much deeper problems in all of our societies.
And I think the reason why we, as values-based bank, approach the challenge is always in a very holistic manner of ethical finance.
That's right. Yeah. Looking at it comprehensively.
Yeah. We're almost at the end of this very short panel, and we're going to be presenting in a moment the Milan Declaration, Statement for Peace by the Global Alliance for Banking on Values. Although you're representing Italy's leading provider of sustainable investment products, can you tell us how Etica screening approach is different from that of the mainstream banks? And specifically also, what are you doing different in terms of the production of trade of weapons and arms when you look at what the mainstream banks are doing?
Sure, first difference. While every institution recently jumped in the bandwagon on sustainable investments, and I must say, some of them already abandoned ship, especially in the US. We have stood by our founding principles since we were established in the year 2000. So what are the distinctive elements of our approach? I would mention 3 elements. The first is that Etica has its own proprietary ranking system. So we do not rely on third-party ratings. And in fact, our methodology, the Etica approach, is protected by a trademark. Second element is that our approach is dynamic, meaning that it is consistently evolving to track and possibly anticipate the developments of the market. Just recently, we announced our methodology to assess climate risk. This year, we'll incorporate tax fairness in our screening. And we are working, as our president just mentioned, we are working to assess the impact of artificial intelligence on society and the environment. And we come to the third element. Our difference is not just on paper. The strict application of our rules can be seen in the composition of our portfolios, which are different from mainstream financial institutions, but I would say also from most of the so-called SRI investors. In our portfolios, you won't find Amazon. You won't find Alphabet. You won't find Meta. And that's a fact. And that has a cost. And we decided to stood to our principles. Then about our approach to weapons. Our approach to weapons is very simple. We do not invest. Indeed, we exclude every kind of weapon, including controversial weapons, conventional weapons, and weapons for civil use. What's more, Etica's exclusion encompasses the whole chain of production and distribution, from the manufacture of individual key parts of such weapons to the provision of services to deploy them. But this doesn't stop there. Our assessment is not limited to the direct production. We also screen throughout the value chain of companies to assess any relevant stake in companies that produce arms. And if I have a minute, I could maybe provide an example, a very quick example. So an example of a company is excluded by us for weapons is the car manufacturer Porsche, which is a name that you usually do not exclude because of weapons. So why Porsche? Well, I really need my notes here. So Porsche is actually a relevant shareholder of Volkswagen Group. They own circa 30% of the shares, over 50% of the voting rights. And in turn, Volkswagen is a significant shareholder in MAN Group, a truck manufacturer. MAN has a brand, Traton, which has a joint venture with Rheinmetall to manufacture military trucks. These trucks have been used as platform, and I read here, for multiple rocket launchers capable of firing cluster munitions as one of their combat functions. So that's how deep we go. This is our difference.
Thank you, Aldo. I think that's a very impressive example why transparency is one of our most important principles in the Global Alliance. Now, unfortunately, our time is up, but I think you agree with me. Just these 3 very different examples from practitioners have been very illustrious in showing us the connection between the weapons industry, peace, and banking. So thank you so much, Mirella. Thank you so much, Aldo. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for being with us. Give them a hand, please. And I would like to straight away move over to the Peace Declaration. We've heard a lot about it, the Milan Declaration, the peace statement by the GABV. And to do this, I would like to now hand over to someone most of you know, someone who has been associated with our movement for a very long time. Ugo Bigeri is the former chief executive and chair of Banca Etica. He's the former chair of Etica funds. He was a GABV board member for Europe, and now he's representing the GABV with our European members. Ugo is a published author on the question of finance for arms, and he understands the topic like no other. He will speak on behalf of the Global Alliance and introduce the Milano Declaration, the peace statement. Ugo, you have the floor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Okay, it's working. Well, thank you for this honor, Martin. And well, yeah, it's a long time that I'm working on that because of my previous role of CEO of Banca Etica, then president of Etica SGR. And in June 22, I was with Susi Snyder speaking at the UN at the first meeting of the. They laughed because I was almost late because of the train, but okay. You have an appointment with UN and you're late. That's not bad. But I want to take the train and not the flight. And because I was talking there at the first meeting of the treaty for abolition of the nuclear weapon, and I was talking there on behalf of ICAN. So thank you, Susi, again. And Etica SGR, and the other financial institutions at that time, not so many, but there were already some GABV bank like ABS, I remember, and for sure Alternative Bank Swiss, and for sure others. And it was a great result. But now you have heard it's growing, it's going better. And at the time, I was in the board of GABV, and I cannot imagine that we have as GABV, something so strong in common and as simple and as powerful that we can proudly say, well, we as in GABV Bank, we are not financing production or trade or war weapons. Well, there are some production of, for sport or for hunting, but we are talking about war. We are not talking about something very, and it's not nuclear weapon, it's war weapon. And then thanks to this, we discovered this thanks to the Banca Etica, so not to thank, I was no more there, but the Banca Etica commitment with peace is always very strong, and so Banca Etica challenged GABV Secretariat to say, oh, we want to do this, and the board of the GABV, I was not part of the discussion, so they all do without me, but the board of the GABV decided, yes, to make this survey, and to go on and then to write this declaration. And, well, the GABV members, they have received this declaration. But for the one of you who don't have, we have some volunteers, I thank a lot them, that when you exit here, they can give you a paper copy of the declaration. And I will not read it. I will not read it, but I want to just to stress or to summarize, on my opinion, 3 concepts that are quite interesting there. GABV is for people, planet, and prosperity. Okay, so we always say this? Well, obviously, it's quite odd to say that making profit on war, it helps any one of these 3 points. It doesn't help the planet, it doesn't help the people, and for sure is not so an efficient allocation of resources to put money in even if you think at the fact that they are useful for defense, and it's all clear to everybody, but to put so much money in the weapon industry is not an efficient allocation of resources for the goal of prosperities. The second thing that we all share as GABV banks an humanitarian views, and it's that we strongly, I read it, I strongly condemn any type of violence, fighting or war, under any circumstances where it occurs, lasting conflict resolution can only take place through open dialogue, peaceful renegotiation, and sincere collaboration as a means to build the trust that underpin peace. And I remember you, this statement comes also from many, many countries where GABV is present with a bank and where war is present. We have an example with Mirella, very, very clear. One of the, well, worst situation in the world is RDC Congo. And the third point is that the declaration is very ambitious because explain the things that I so briefly say. Well, we don't finance our weapon. We think that we have to solve problem with the dialogue, but also is direct to the whole financial industry, and it's a little bit something what today is for sure utopistic. So we ask the financial industry not to make profit on weapon. It doesn't mean you don't want weapon to be produced. You don't want to make profit on that. But think to other utopistic requests of the past. Yeah, I go very fast, very in the past. Slavery. Yeah, abolishing slavery was at the time really utopistic, or really something impossible. Yeah, or again, if you think how people were treating Congo, but even in the US, you know very well. So slavery was something a very utopistic request in the past. And even the right to vote to women, when it was first proposed, was something, well, what are you talking about? So, and nowadays, more close to us, and we discuss that in these days in the GABV, the request of a ban on fossil fuels. So, writing a declaration is a delicate art, because it's the art of leading an idea on a razor's edge. On one hand, you have the real world and the pragmatic need of responding to short-term challenges. You have been attacked, you have to do something. Yeah, this is a very short-term challenge, okay? On the other hand, you have the desire for a better world, better laws, and that is a vision, a direction for everybody. The Declaration of Human Rights is based on that. It doesn't mean that everybody of us has the right of food, education, house. It's not health. It's what we would like to achieve. And nowadays we are facing, well, it's quite absurd, but some banks and political bodies that would like to say that weapon industry could be eligible for sustainable finance. And very often are the same entities that act like fossil fuels could be sustainable, because they don't want to change. So in GABV declaration, in the Milano Peace Declaration, we indicated that making profit from war is something to avoid, and we have a totally different idea. So a totally different idea of the mainstream finance. And we are sure that discussing this vision, because it's a vision that will let us discuss even between us, will help to improve the real peace in the world. So we are very happy to have this declaration, and we invite you to read it as you have in your hand. Thank you very much.
There is a video that celebrates this moment, and Regia, please put the video. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Tom, to Martin, to James, to the board of GABV, to Ugo for having guided this important result for all of us. I ask you a big applause to them because they had courage, and we need courage in this time. So please, thank you to you. Thank you very much. I can't hide my emotion. I really emotion now. But this is a moment in which we are going to the end. Don't worry, the food is ready and, and is waiting us. But I ask you to acknowledge a little bit more this important moment with a testimony. I ask to Roberta Fama to share the stage for a speech, and I introduce her and the reason why she's here. So Roberta Fama is the head of institutional relations of a very big bank in Italy. So it's a confederation of cooperative banks whose name is Cassa Centrale Banca. Cassa Centrale Banca is also a proud member and shareholder of Etica SGR and founder of Etica SGR. She accepted, and Cassa Centrale accepted to join this moment with us and also to contribute to the expenses of this event. So Cassa Centrale Banca is also a sponsor. So thank you for this, and thank you in particular because you have a policy on weapons. Yes. And this is an important thing. So thank you, and we listen to you.
Thank you very much. Then good afternoon, everyone. In warmly thanking you for your much appreciated invitation, I extend a cordial greeting to all of you, also on behalf of the Cassa Centrale Group top management. It is a pleasure to participate in and support this meeting and be able to bring you Cassa Centrale Group's contribution to this important opportunity for reflection and discussion on the role that banking system can play in steering the economy and the population towards a future of greater sustainability in its broadest possible sense. Well, let me introduce Cassa Centrale to you for a little. Cassa Centrale Group is an Italian cooperative banking group made by 66 local cooperative credit banks, characterized by prevalent mutuality, with almost 1,500 branches and almost 500,000 cooperative partners and 12,000 employees. Listed among the 300 largest cooperatives in the world, according to the annual World Cooperative Monitor Report, its roots lie in cooperative credit, which has more than 150 years of history in Italy. The group's organizational structure was established in 2019 as a result of Italian reform that sought to preserve cooperative credit as a bank model with a local vocation. The reform confirmed the importance of autonomy for the individual cooperative banks, linking them to the parent company not by a relationship of power, but by a cohesion contract that governs their rights and duties and assigns direction and coordination powers to the parent company, the role played by Cassa Centrale Bank. Ownership of the cooperative banks, therefore, remains with their cooperative partners, confirming the nature and powers of the shareholders' meeting. And 95% of the parent company's share capital is held by the affiliated banks. Then our group's business is founded on mutualistic credit cooperative principles and values, ratified in the Articles of Association of the affiliated banks and the parent company, characterized by proximity and by the relationship of trust with partners and customers, largely made up of small investors, individuals and small and medium enterprises, eager to relate with and sensitive to the proximity of their bank. The purpose of operations of Cassa Centrale Bank as a cooperative banking group is a social by nature and meets the everyday social needs of its operating areas and communities. It recognizes the importance of operating in accordance with principles of legality, morality, professionalism, integrity, and transparency, in line with business objectives, and has adopted a code of ethics and 5 sustainability policies: anti-corruption, environmental, human rights, diversity, and arms brokerage, by the way. The intention was to define group-level rules to inspire conduct in line with the business model based on social responsibility in all its forms. Well, with the reference to today's topic, in 2021, we introduced a policy on arms brokerage transactions designed to commit the group to acting ethically and responsibly in this specific area. The aim of the policy was not so much to disengage from a controversial sector as to not want to be party to a business that, if viewed from a purely financial perspective, might even seem attractive. We do believe that economics must be ethical. We must have an ethic. Our policy, this policy, goes beyond mere compliance with the Italian law, which imposes reporting obligation on banks and requires a report to Parliament, as well as prohibiting transactions in certain countries, such as those with arms trade embargoes or responsible for serious violation. Our policy for our counterparties envisages different assessment procedures based on core business activity and the purpose of the transaction. For example, relations and transactions with counterparties involved in the manufacture or marketing of prohibited and or controversial weapons are not undertaken at all. And holding shares in companies operating in arms manufacture, including light hunting and sporting weapons, is forbidden. Enhanced due diligence is also required by the credit department of each bank, as is the monitoring of a host of transactions, from holding company shares to domestic and foreign banking transactions involving support for the international arms trade. The annual surveys that we conduct on the banks have confirmed how marginal weapons-related transactions and loans are, confirming the commitment of all group banks to making the policy concrete and effective, and to seriously adopting it. Cassa Centrale is also strongly committed to ensuring that banking activities are carried out from a sustainable and responsible perspective, and to this end continues to promote sustainable and responsible finance, financial education and transparency, in line with the values of a credit cooperative identity. As part of its activities, the Cassa Centrale Group has progressively increased its commitment and promoted the sensitization of its customers to savings and financing products and services with social and environmental purposes, aware of the positive impact this can generate for sustainable development by providing sustainable loans, offering green products, offering investment products that integrate ESG. So, offering customers financial education on understanding the environment and social consequences of their investment choices. The group's commitment to sustainability is reported annually through the consolidated non-financial statement and sets objectives and targets through the sustainability plan updated each year. Then the group has also joined the United Nations Global Compact in 2023 and initiatives that encourages companies to adopt sustainable policies and adopt proactive conduct in the fields of human rights protection, environmental protection, occupational safety, anti-corruption, and more generally, to support the broader development goals set by the United Nations. And so, as a member of this framework, the group is also committed to reporting annually on its commitments and progress in relation to the 10 founding principles. For us, therefore, peace is not just zero weapons, which in an event is the enabling factor. But peace is also a daily commitment to guaranteeing social cohesion, activating relations in the community, raising customer awareness of sustainability, promoting and supporting the community through a policy of widespread charities and sponsorships based on a little too many principle that triggers an intangible but important relationships multiplier and promotes close relations and associations, small or large, in our local areas of operation. For example, in 2022, almost 35 million was disbursed to over 20,000 initiatives in Italy and abroad. So we firmly believe that each of us must do our bit in line with a cooperative approach, making a firm commitment and helping to spread a culture of peace. Sustainability and peace, from this perspective, are for us synonymous. While finance itself is neutral, we do believe that can be good finance as a result of the direction we give to funds entrusted to us by our customers and partners. It is only fair that banking systems give room to many interpretations of banking that implement value approaches that are genetically oriented towards the common good. In this regard, I believe that the Cassa Centrale Group has many coinciding points with the GABV banks. So thank you once again for inviting us, and I'm proud to have been part of this event.
Thank you, Roberta Fama. You were introduced as someone who really supported this event. You are supporting this event in many more ways also by your courageous work. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. So there we are. How are you feeling?
What do you think?
Very emotional. Very emotional. So we just want to thank all of our speakers one more time for their magnificent contributions this evening. Please stand up. Please stand up. Yeah? Stand up so we can see you. Take a bow.
What do you think if we do a picture to the speaker?
I think we should have a photograph. So maybe right after this, if you come back up on stage to all our speakers and panelists, we'll make sure you get a photo. Okay, people racing off, listen. Dinner is just right there. And for those who would like to go into the archive, 7:15, 7:50, and 8:15, and you just need to sign a list. Only 20 places available right outside. Thank you all very much. This was a wonderful moment. Let's turn the moment into momentum. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ciao.